Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantrikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Vishakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyev Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hrishikesha Indriyatmane Nama Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nibbuthatmane Swarga Pavarga Dwaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Nama Nama Hiranya Viryaya Chaturodhaya Tantave. Okay, Hare Krishna. So I'm sorry I'm a bit late today. Got stuck in the traffic, underestimated that. So we'll be continuing a discussion on the principles of surrender, Saranagati. And Saranagati is practically the process for bhakti yoga. In other words, we have spoken about this before. For different processes, there are different ways to approach the goal. So depending on the spiritual process that has been undertaken, one may approach the goal based on their capabilities, and in combination, there are different degrees of help that is received from the divine in terms of being able to attain the goal. So there is our effort, and then there is the mercy component. And based on the process that we have adhered to in terms of spiritual progress, the mercy component differs. In other words, there are certain spiritual processes which are completely dependent on our prowess. What is our capability? What is our expertise? What have we learned? What have we unlearned? It's completely dependent on that. And then there are some which are partially dependent on the amount of effort that is put in, and then the amount of help that comes through in terms of the divine pulling us up. So there are processes which are more in terms of upward facing, where you are trying to climb the mountain on your own, and then there is others where you're being pulled up from the bottom. In other words, ours is a process where we are dependent on being pulled up. You see? Ours is a process where we are completely dependent on being pulled up because the devotee realizes that circumstantially we are in an environment which is completely against the process. How so? We read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we were recently talking about the first canto, that there are 4 pillars of Dharma. And the 4 pillars of Dharma break down over the 4 yugas. So you have in Satya Yuga all the 4 pillars of Dharma being fully manifest. So the 4 pillars that are supportive of all forms of spiritual activity, because they lay the foundation. The 4 pillars are austerity. The second principle is cleanliness. The third principle is mercy. And the fourth principle is truthfulness. So these are the 4 different components, the 4 different limbs of being able to execute duty. Because without the foundation of duty, one cannot really hope to achieve something which is even higher. It's almost like saying that I want to go to Los Angeles, or I want to go to wherever I want to go from New Jersey, but I won't get to the airport. I got to take off from here. It's not going to work because there are going to be steps. And these steps themselves are based on the degrees to which we are able to adhere to the 4 limbs of Dharma. So the previous session, we spoke about the 4 limbs of Dharma. We said very clearly that our process also requires austerity. What is the tapasya that we undertake? What is the austerity that we undertake in our process? The, there are practices. So there are practices in our own system which are favorable for developing Krishna consciousness, and then there are processes which are not favorable. So the tapasya, or the effort that is being put in, involves being able to focus on what is favorable and being able to reject what is unfavorable. So this inventory taking, this improvement has to be done on a daily basis. It's practically, there are people who do have this 40, 50-year outlook, and they take inventory, they account for what have we accomplished in 40 years, depending on how old you are, 40, 30 years, 25 years, what have we accomplished in these 25 years? Where did we go wrong? Because there have been big turning points. Every one of us, if we are sincere, we can put things on the table and we would be able to look at what went wrong in the past 20 years, what went wrong in the past 10 years. Even from a superficial way, we would be able to arrive at certain conclusions, certain level of, we would be able to arrive to some judgment on what went wrong. So similarly, we have the ability to look at what went wrong in the past 10 years, what went wrong in the past 5 years, and understand that what went wrong need not necessarily be extraordinarily fine-tuned to the daily practice of Krishna consciousness in terms of chanting, in terms of reading, associating, serving, and being, coming in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam and so on. It need not be that. It can simply be a matter of being completely derailed over the past 10 years, 5 years, 40 years in our life. We can be derailed in life. How could we be derailed in life? Because we have slipped from understanding and desiring for what is favorable. You see, we could have derailed in the past 10 years. Past 10 years, 15 years, 40 years, we could have derailed. You see, that inventory taking is a regular process. That is something that we ought to adhere to on a daily basis, on somewhat have a reflective thought in terms of, the 40-year, 10-year, 15-year outlook. Okay? So the whole landscape is a little different. What are we trying to say here? That austerity is a matter of being able to give up what is unfavorable and being able to accept what is favorable. And what is to be given up could be pleasurable to the body, could be pleasurable to the mind. What is to be accepted could be unpleasant to the body, unpleasant to the mind. If not, where is the question of austerity? Where is the question of austerity if there is no, there's no need for austerity in any case? So where is the question of austerity if there isn't any need because you're not making any effort, right? There is no need. But there is a very big truth here. The truth is that without austerity, nothing is achieved. Even if you want to make material progress, if you want to do what you did last year and expect that the results that you're going to be getting this year are going to be any different, we are fooling ourselves. We're fooling ourselves. If last year yielded poor results, 2 years back yielded poor results, 5 years back yielded poor results, why are we imagining that somehow we're going to be achieving something wonderful when we keep doing what we did in the past few years? So what is it which ought to have changed? So there has to be some amount of sacrifice. No one has achieved anything meaningful, anything worth of substance, anything worth of value has not been achieved without sacrifice. There's never been achieved. It has not been achieved. The real successful people are people who have become comfortable in doing things which they're not comfortable doing so. Real successful people are those who have been successful because they have learned how to do things which they don't like. Specifically, they have learned how to do things which others don't like. It's all the more truthful that real success comes when you learn to do things which others don't like to do. See, when we watch a program on TV, for instance, we watch a young maestro, we watch someone who is like anybody, young or old, who is performing, who is performing on stage in a concert. It appears to be seamless. It appears to be a situation which we can't really comprehend because they are doing it so wonderfully. They have blended into the musical instrument. They have blended into the song. They are blending into whatever they have imagined or acting, whatever it is they're trying to do. They have blended into all of this, right? We can't discern. If we feel as if they're doing it so naturally when we watch them. Haven't you seen this? Especially professionals, when they perform, you feel that they're very natural. And it's astonishing as to how natural they are. But what we really don't know is that they have put in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of practice, deadly practice. There have been sleepless hours. In some cases, there have been austerities. I remember my spiritual mentor, Guru Maharaj, he was the mentor of Muhammad Ali, the boxer. So before this very big match, which used to occur in the 70s, Muhammad Ali was, I would say, he was perhaps the most well-known, most beloved athlete in the US ever. Very well. I mean, he had charisma, which no other athlete had, even though he was a boxer. Very rare to find in a boxer that he had charisma. He was quick-witted. His speaking style was, fantastic. You could see that. You would appreciate it even, now in 40 years. So this person, he was such a big personality that those days he was a real big personality. And there was something specific about his style. And he shared this. One of the things that he shared was, even though he was not raised in a situation of being celibate and maintaining celibacy and so on and so forth, before a major match, Muhammad Ali used to share that he used to become completely celibate for at least 3 or 4 months, because he would lose his sharpness if he were to engage in sense gratification. So he used to completely avoid, engaging in any form of sense gratification for at least 4 or 5 months before a major match. That was real training. So there was austerity in being able to inhibit himself from even acting as they would normally do from a cultural viewpoint. Okay? Then there was also this whole thing of being able to cut off, and then there was constant training. And then they had to weigh in at a certain level. Otherwise, they would get classified into something else. So there was a watch on diet, on what they had to eat. It's intense. It is intense. If you really watch professional athletes, when we look at them, professional musicians, athletes, the amount of effort they put in for them to do what they do for those 2 hours and 20 minutes or 30 minutes on stage is enormous, unthinkable. Athletes have to improve by seconds. They have to improve by minutes. They have to improve by perhaps milliseconds in terms of performance so that they can maintain the pace. And then they have to weigh in at a certain level. Okay? In some cases, if they are of a lower weight category, it is death for them to enter the ring if they get bumped up into the next because the other fellow is very heavy. So they cut down their weight by putting themselves in a steam bath. They just lose around pounds and pounds just trying to maintain the weight. The point which you're trying to reiterate here is that these are very mundane passing events. Everybody forgets these people. Everybody forgets these people. No matter who you are, you're forgotten. You're not remembered. These are mundane events. Okay? And these mundane events require doing things which you don't like. These mundane events require doing things as a core practice where you really are going to make that musical instrument a part of your body. Your mind is going to blend into the musical instrument. You become completely lost to the crowd and you're going to blend and then you're going to perform. You're going to be completely absorbed in being able to chant. You're going to be completely absorbed in being able to sing. This requires an extraordinary amount of practice where everything is fused together when people are offering a performance. We don't notice that. We don't really notice that. We don't notice that. We watch the performance. We don't really notice that there's enormous effort which is being put. There's enormous effort which is being put on this. Okay? There's enormous effort. So what do we learn from this? Is there anything that we can accomplish in the world without austerity? Right? The amount of austerity required for going to the highest planet while we are in this body. Can you imagine that? Why would we even minimize that particular aspect? There is a need. There is a need for austerity in our practice. Okay? So we are going to first start with that. The pillar or the foundation of action is based on dharma. One cannot really act without understanding the foundation of dharma. The first foundation of dharma is austerity. The second foundation of dharma is cleanliness. The cleanliness part is where we have to focus on. What is the focus on cleanliness? You see, the most contaminating of contaminating of all the senses is the sense of touch. It is the most contaminating. The sense of touch is supposed to be the most contaminating. So cleanliness is also realizing that our body is not clean. We all realize that many times during the day. We realize that we are not in clean bodies. This is to extend to others as well. We also have to realize that others are also not in clean bodies. We have to acknowledge this. We have to acknowledge this. So there's this inner cleanliness which comes in when we start realizing who we are. We understand that we are not this body. We don't want to be this body because we are not clean. You see, we don't want to be this body. But the real fact of cleanliness has to do with being able to have thoughts that are completely free from the lower modes of passion and ignorance. Having thoughts which are free from passion and ignorance is the specific fact of cleanliness, which is required. And then you have the concept of mercy. The concept of mercy is compassion, being compassionate towards others. And then there's the fourth concept of being truthful. Truth is not represented anywhere but in Shastra. In scripture, there is truth because it's absolute by nature. Every other consideration is apparent. Every other consideration is apparent. Do you believe that I can see you? Yes or no? Yeah, but it is an apparent consideration because my glasses are not good, so I'm just seeing a blurred form without my glasses. You see, this is an apparent consideration. It's not absolute. You can believe that someone is in some way because there's perception. But these are apparent considerations because you are making an assumption and you're understanding that I am in such and such way. I'm looking at you and I'm able to see you clearly. But in reality, if I don't wear my glasses, I can't see you properly. It's somewhat blurred. You see, this is an apparent consideration. So a very important foundation which Krishna lies, or rather offers in the Bhagavad Gita, is that you cannot understand him based on apparent consideration. He says very clearly, you cannot understand me based on your apparent consideration because your senses are defective. If you cannot really make sense, if I can't see you and I can't define who you are, and you're sitting a few feet away, then what is the question of my basing my assumptions of Krishna, whom I can't see? So Krishna is very clear. You cannot reach conclusions about God based on apparent considerations. So what does he say? He says in 4.9 that you will have to understand me through tattva, scripture. So truth is based on scripture. The more and more we understand who we are based on scripture, the greater would be our efficiency. What do we mean by that? See, several times during the week, I talk to different people. And in some cases, I observe that the women I talk to have the psychology of a male. Okay? Don't be surprised. The psychology inside could be male, but they could be in a woman's body. And sometimes I talk to men who are in male bodies, but they have psychology of women. Psychologically, they approach the world as women. It is good to be psychologically a woman. Psychologically a woman. It is good to be because generally, psychologically being a woman is being more selfless. Male psychology is more selfish. And I'm not talking about your body. Okay? So don't pat yourself on the back because you're in a woman's body. Or don't feel bad because you're in a man's body. Because you could have completely different psychologies while being in each other's body. The general characteristic of male psychology is to be selfish. You see? But how do two apparent contradictions live together as husband and wife if the male is a female inside and the woman is a male inside? Psychologically speaking. Psychologically. How do the people live together? The only way that can be done is for both parties, the husband and wife, to be able to adhere to Shastric conclusions on the behavior of the husband and behavior of the wife. The behavior of the husband and behavior of the wife have to be gleaned from Shastra. And when they glean that from Shastra, then they have the ability to align their behavior according to Shastra, and that becomes Dharma. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? because we don't come with everything falling in place rightly. We have to align ourselves with absolute truth. And then the truth slowly starts coming forth. Do we understand that even in our basic approach to life, we could be very wrong? We could be very wrong in our roles in life. We could be very wrong in our concept of duty. We could be very wrong in our understanding. And we wouldn't know it. We wouldn't know it, right? We wouldn't really know it. How do you align all of this in a proper way so that we could function optimally? How do you align all of this? You align behavior according to the role that's been given to you and that which has been described in Shastra. The husband's role has been described in Shastra. Several instances in Srimad Bhagavatam, you can find the role of the husband. What is the role of the husband? The wife's role has been described in Shastra. Several verses, there are several instances and examples of what is a wife supposed to do shastrically. Several roles. The best story is of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. One of the best examples of male and female psychology and how it works is Kardama Muni and Devahuti, the mother of Kapila, Lord Kapila. Best, one of the best. So the point is that when we start reading, we understand that we have come with certain defects. We may be in a certain role, but psychologically or even physically, we are not prepared for that role. So how do you understand and how do you adapt? You adapt through Shastra. So there has to be an absolute consideration in everything we do. So when we bring in efficiency, when we come in touch with the absolute truth, and we start bringing in efficiency in our life by understanding how Shastra is expecting us to live, then we are ready to embrace higher levels of revelation. Our primary challenge in Krishna consciousness is because we are not aligned living wise with Shastra. We are not. There are challenges in how we live. Okay? It is unnatural. Let's put it that way. It is unnatural. We have to adapt for it. That is the reason why there has to be an understanding of where the challenge of Krishna consciousness is. I can very easily sit here and talk about favorable practices and unfavorable practices for spirituality. Favorable practices, go to bed early, eat less. Yeah, these are very well-known favorable and unfavorable practices. But I was thinking that I need to give and I need to share a framework for a thought process, because that is going to help you decide what is favorable and what is unfavorable in practically every instance as you live life. If I were to just give you what is favorable and unfavorable based on broader classification, that's not going to help. But if I establish a framework of decision making, then you would be able to pass certain situations in life through that framework and reach conclusions. That is more important, that is more valuable. So that's what we're going to do today in terms of understanding what is a specific framework, where do you start for you to really understand whether we are acting favorably or unfavorably in Krishna consciousness. Everybody here has sincere intentions. Everybody, practically everyone has sincere intentions of wanting to do their very best in everything they do. There are sincere intentions, and of this, there is absolutely no doubt. There is no doubt. Whatever we are trying to do, we are trying to do in a sincere way. We could be faulty in execution, but there is sincerity in most cases in terms of what we want to accomplish. But yet, why do we face the challenges we face? How do you mitigate those? How do you move forward? It requires some thought process. So when we start talking about what is favorable for Krishna consciousness, what is unfavorable for Krishna consciousness, we again have to go back to Shastra. Okay? So, how do you define Krishna consciousness? Which is the verse you think I should go to understand Krishna consciousness? I have spoken this a million times. I'm perhaps exaggerating. Yes. So that's exactly where I'm going first. I'm going to define, and then I'm going to come back. 18.664. 18.64, 65, and 66. Anyway, 65. Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vashyati satyam te pratijane priyosime. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. Isn't this what we're really wanting? Isn't this what we're wanting?
Yes.
Right? Okay. That's all right. So I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. Krishna is making this promise. Now, in Vraja, Krishna is making the statement on this planet, on the battlefield to Arjun. He's looking at Arjun and he's making this statement saying, always think of me. Become my devotee. Offer homage unto me. He is not making this statement in Vraja. He is making this statement to Arjun on the battlefield in Kurukshetra. Now, let's understand what's the difference. Why is he making this statement? In Vraja, which is our goal, to experience Krishna as a servant of the Lord, as an associate of the Lord in Vraja, in Goloka. That is the goal and that is the actual process that we have empowered to be achieving in the movement of Lord Chaitanya. Once we come into this process and once we come in touch with the movement of Lord Chaitanya, when we come into the movement of Lord Chaitanya, we receive mercy for us to be able to ultimately reach Vrindavan. The consciousness of Vrindavan is where everybody is constantly thinking of Krishna. The real issue with those who are pursuing a spiritual goal is they have no idea what it is to constantly think of Krishna. They don't even find it pleasurable. Okay, let's be very honest. They don't even find it pleasurable because they can't even think about it, saying, to always think of Krishna, how fun is that? How fun is it, in terms of always thinking of Krishna and worshipping him and so on? It is not even appealing to even practicing devotees. Right? I think I'm being honest here so that I'm expecting that since there is no protest, I'm assuming that I'm making silences, answering me saying, yeah, you're right. The reason why there's no protest and the reason why it's not appealing is because you can make an inference. What is the inference that you can make from that? The inference you can make from the statement is that practically, even a practicing devotee does not desire pure devotional service. It's a fact. I'm not kidding. This is putting things on the table. We practice, but we don't really desire pure devotional service, do we? How many of you here make a claim that you are desiring pure devotional service every minute? Where you're clamoring, you're really saying that with intensity, Krishna, I'm missing this. And I've taken up this process, do what you're supposed to do, make it happen. I don't care what the experiences are. I want to experience pure devotional service. You make it happen. How many of us are even clamoring for this? How many of us are even thinking about it even once? Once a day, once a month, once a year? Okay, and that's the reason why there was no protest. It was accepted. It's because we don't even desire pure devotional service, which is the goal of Hare Krishna. I'm sorry, there was we lost contact here because the internet connection was failing. Hopefully, we can get the remaining part. So, Akhilesh, would you be able to record it? Yeah, if you can.
Audio.
Yeah, audio at least, so that if it goes again, I would have a backup. Okay, so sorry, we get started again. So where did we stop? We stopped at the point where we understood that even practicing devotees who are initiated, who are on the path of initiation, who have probably understood Krishna consciousness, they don't desire pure devotional service. It's not a part of their consciousness. It is not there. Which is the conclusion which we reached when I asked you very clearly as to how many times do we think about it. How do we even find, many of us, practically, most of us, do not even find the thought of constantly remembering Krishna appealing as a goal. We don't. We can't recognize it as a proper goal. It's not. We don't have realizations. We don't have experience. We don't have the positive realization and experience which would allow us to understand what it is to be a resident of Braja. We don't understand that. We don't. We can understand what is going to make us happy in this world. We do. We acknowledge that. If we have problems with health, if they get resolved, we become happy. If we have problems with relationships, they get resolved, we become happy. If we have problems with money, they get resolved, we become happy. We understand that part of resolving and becoming happy. And there are other fleeting pleasures which the universe offers, which we have recognized as happy. But have we really recognized constant remembrance of Krishna, which is what he's saying here in 18.65, saying you always have to remember me, you always would be chanting my names, you would always be worshipping me. Do we ever think of that as pleasurable? So we stopped at the fact that nobody raised their hands because you're all very honest. Yes. Are you saying you do?
Question.
Yeah.
Probably isn't it naturally pleasurable to remember about Krishna? Because he's absolute truth.
That's your intelligence. It's not your heart which is speaking. Right? We'll get to it. Just remember this question if you don't mind. We will dissect it because I may be able to address it as we go on. Okay? Good question, but then we'll get to it. Right. So we all acknowledge that. We acknowledge that we really can't remember Krishna the way he wants us to. We don't even find it pleasurable. It's a great concept in many of our higher heads. It's a great concept. Coming into Krishna consciousness, we have experienced freedom from anxiety to a certain level. Hare Krishna? Yeah. Freedom from anxiety to a certain level. We have experienced that. Right? We have experienced freedom from anxiety to a certain level. We have understood what is the goal in certain ways, coming to Krishna consciousness. We have understood that. But can we really say that we find pleasure in remembering Krishna? How many of us can do that? We can't. We really cannot. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that most of the people who practice Krishna consciousness do not desire pure devotional service as their goal. It's not there. The desire is not there. The burning desire to attain pure devotional service is not present because of a lack of realization, lack of experience, lack of many, many things. Okay? So is everybody on the same page with me when I say this? As bitter as this sounds, are you on the same page with me that you're not desiring pure devotional service? Okay. Okay. Yes.
So it basically goes up and down.
Are we desiring pure? Are you desiring a condition of constantly remembering Krishna? The condition in Vraja is to constantly remember Krishna. The condition in Vraja is that naturally they remember Krishna. How do you naturally remember someone? You naturally remember someone when you're in love with him or her. Isn't this right?
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody has at least experienced some unrequited love at some point in their lives. You've been on this planet, I'm sure. It has been unrequited if it was not completely reciprocated. Everybody has experienced unrequited love, and you all know what it is. Oh, I can remember the person. Go without food, go without sleep. The typical recipe for a good movie in Hindi movie. Hmm? We have seen that, haven't we? So, what is true with a mundane experience is also true with a spiritual experience, except that with a mundane experience, it's fleeting. It goes away. Okay? And with a mundane experience, it is never a situation where you do more of it and you're going to feel you want more. With a spiritual experience, the spiritual love and the connection with Krishna is such, because it is spiritual by nature, there is no duality of experiencing distress while you're engaging in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm still trying to understand that why you're saying that there is no desire. No desire, because if there is no desire, then why we go to temple, why we wake up early, do chanting, or do seva. There is definitely desire, and that's why we are doing.
No, but is that desire of wanting to constantly remember him? Manmanabo madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Desire is there because we are spiritually oriented. There's no two ways about it. We are all spiritual beings. We choose Krishna consciousness because we are very fortunate. We have the Sukriti, the Bhakti Unmukha Sukriti from the past. We come in touch with a personality who is able to give us that connection, and we come into Krishna consciousness. There is no doubt about the fact that we are there at some level. But yet, if really such desires are there, then there should be absolutely no question of the stumbling blocks and the ups and downs and the various levels of, what do you call it, confusion when we're trying to approach the goal. It is not there. Because, let me finish, when you'll get your answers. It may be difficult for you to fully accept what I'm saying. Because at some level, you have accepted that what you're doing is exactly what you're supposed to do in terms of attaining the goal. You're thinking that what you're doing is correspondingly what is required.
What I'm thinking is that I may not be there, but the desire is there. I'm on the right path. So
That is fine. Everybody is on the path. We are all on the path of purity. We're all on the path of wanting to attain that at different levels. Okay? I'm talking about, is there a burning desire of wanting to constantly remember? Are we really disturbed that we don't have it? Are we really disturbed? We are not. We should be very honest with ourselves. Are we really disturbed to the point that we don't have a burning desire? I don't want to get detracted. I'll just finish my thing, then we'll go one by one. Because I have a certain plan. So to conclude this, we don't. We don't really have the burning desire of wanting to constantly remember. We don't have this. We do not have the ability to go in front of the Lord and say, do whatever is required to make this happen for me. Do whatever is required, Krishna. I'm ready to experience inauspiciousness. I'm ready to experience auspiciousness. I'm ready to pay any kind of price because I really want to be able to remember you at all times as you want me to. And I'm very disturbed that I'm not able to have that consciousness. So we are not there. We have other desires which supersede. That's the reason why we are not there. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is talking about in 15:15. In 15:15, what is there is here. I am seated in everyone's heart. Same Krishna who is telling Arjun in 18.65 that you should constantly remember me, offer homage to me, and worship me. In 15:15, a few chapters before, he is giving the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, where he's saying, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. He's saying that I'm going to give you remembrance. I'm going to give you knowledge to come to me. But I'm also going to give you the ability to forget. That's where Krishna is making a very dangerous statement, where he's saying, I'm going to help you forget. If you don't want to remember me, I'm going to help you forget. Krishna is making the statement. It's a very dangerous statement because Krishna is saying, I will facilitate your forgetting me. I will facilitate, I will make arrangements for you. You will forget me. I will make arrangements. I will make arrangements for you to remember me. I will make arrangements so that you will receive knowledge so that you can constantly remember me. So he is saying he is going to facilitate forgetfulness. It cannot fail. It cannot fail. If he facilitates, it will not fail. He is seated. What does it mean when he says, I'm seated in your heart? He is seeing what we want and he is delivering according to what we want, what we desire, what we need. He is examining our desires. He's saying, oh, you want this? Okay, I'll help you forget. Oh, you really desperately want to remember me at all times? I will make arrangements for you. He's in the heart. It's in 15:15. Okay? So where does all of this lead to? Again and again, where does all of this lead to? Krishna is facilitating forgetfulness. And we have a problem. We really are not excited about 18.65. Are we excited? Be honest. You know, mediocrity is not going to lead to success in any endeavor. Mediocre cooks produce mediocre dishes. Right? They are mediocre because, you know, they don't really put the heart in. So they say they're mediocre. The effort is going to be mediocre. So you have mediocre workers going to produce mediocre results. Agreed? Mediocre leadership produces mediocre results as well. If you're mediocre, you're going to produce mediocre results. If you're intense and if you're superlative, you're going to produce superlative results. So mediocrity has never worked and it never will. It never will. It never will. Not in a process like ours. Our process is the PhD of spiritual processes. Right? A PhD, you know, we have some here. You would all agree that you probably would not have received as much help as you did when you're doing your undergrad. You never did. You never do. But we receive intense amount of help. Intense. We have an extraordinary amount of volume of work, Shastra. We have people who help us at all times. We have so many different practitioners. There have been so many different videos because when people did start out with the movement, there were not many devotees when our gurus were starting out. There were not many devotees who had even completed one reading of Bhagavatam. What to say of being completely well-versed and being able to speak and this. You know, there were not many devotees even who had completed one reading of Bhagavatam because everybody was young and everybody was, you know, kind of into the movement just at the time. Srila Prabhupada was there. There were many devotees who were initiated by Srila Prabhupada who never met him. They were initiated by him, but they never met him. They received their beads by mail. And who was a local authority used to chant on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, give them a name, give them everything. They used to pick it up. They were constantly moving around. But we have immense help now. You know, you go to any kind of source, the web, you have an immense amount of lectures. People have gone through everything. They have spoken realizations to give us support. Scriptures are available. You have your little iPads and iPods, whatever it is, you know, everything is available at a click. You can hear classes. You can do all this. Plus, there are so many practitioners who are also available for easy access if you want to resolve issues. That I'm having this challenge and I want to talk to you, there are people to help. We receive immense help, and this is a PhD process where there's immense help. This is a PhD of spirituality. Why? Because the person whom we want to attain is saying, I will help you forget me. He is making a claim in scripture saying, I'm going to help you forget me. You want to remember me, I'll help you remember me. If you want to attain knowledge about me, I will give you knowledge. You want to forget me, I will help you forget me in certain ways. What is he responding to? Our desires. He is looking into our heart and he's facilitating based on what is available. There are many saints in the Christian tradition who have not come in touch with the highest levels of spirituality because there was limited scope of what was written when they were practicing. But because of their sincerity, because of their depth, because of their intensity of wanting to know God, they come in touch with information because the Lord is inside. And there were so many revelations which were made even to those Christian saints where they used to practice and they used to offer realizations. There are many realizations, advanced realizations, which are offered by them as well, even though they never came in touch with organized scripture which spoke about it. They never came in touch with that because they didn't have access to it. They had intense desires. The Lord is in the heart and He facilitates, and they're able to have some good, very high realizations in terms of how to proceed further. Okay, 1 minute, please. Okay. So do we understand that? So Krishna is saying he's going to facilitate it. What is he facilitating, by the way? So whatever we are experiencing now is being facilitated based on our desires. If we are not experiencing Manmanav Madbhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru, or if we don't have a concept of what it is, if we don't have concrete desires of understanding and wanting to reach there, it is because we are not desiring it. So the facilitation is not happening. So we have many other desires. Our many other desires are practical from a physical point of view. As I mentioned before, we want to solve economic problems. We want to solve, professional problems. We want to solve relationship issues. We want to solve health-related problems. These are practical challenges. These are our desires. And they dominate our consciousness to the point where we find it difficult to bring forth the desire for pure devotional service. Because our identity of a physical identity, of being a professional, being a husband, wife, father, mother, is far more well established in our consciousness, in our chitta, than the identity of being a servant of Krishna in Braja. As a consequence, our desires predominantly are very, very much terrestrial. They belong to the planet. And we constantly are thinking about those things, trying to resolve those. And these are practical considerations. And everybody is going to have them, by the way. Everybody is going to have them. Everybody is going to have them to some degree. Some kind of complication is a part of life. It's a fact of life. You can't really fight it. So what is it and how is it are we supposed to establish favorable practices and give up unfavorable ones? What is it which we just discussed so far? We found that we don't have desires, or our desires are weak in a relative sense. And what is being manifested in terms of opportunity is also weak because we desire such weak connections. We don't really intensify our connections. We don't have that. We don't have that particular desire where we can go and say, you do anything, I want this to happen. We don't. But we have such desires for solving problems, don't we? Don't we? We do. Because there's a reality associated with it. We identify with the physical reality. We go before Krishna. We tell him to solve our problems. And with intensity, because we recognize those problems and because those are real, that identity is there. The identity of being a servant is still conceptual. Okay, we have to learn to distinguish this. So how do we go from this particular paradox where we exist in a body, we are going to be challenged in so many different ways, we are going to face challenges in different walks of life, and then we're going to be overcome, probably overwhelmed with those challenges. How do we manage to have both happen? How do we do that? That is the specific focus of what I wanted to share. I wanted to share that the specific focus and the specific way for us to be able to move forward is for us to understand that there has to be a core practice. There has to be a core practice. You have to constantly desire to improve the core practice. Okay? Peripherally, we can have different problems coming and going. But there's a core practice, which is what you're talking about. The core practice of being able to comfortably being able to chant. And I'm using the word what? What did I use? Comfortably, not in a disturbed state of mind. The core practice of being able to comfortably be able to sit and chant, comfortably being able to serve in terms of executing devotional service, in being able to associate, being able to read. And the reason I'm underlining comfortable is because when you have a very disturbed, intense situation going on 365 days of a year, your energy is being dissipated in such. Very little energy is available for you to really concentrate and have a core practice. So desiring a core practice which is very stable, where you're able to sit and be able to chant and be able to serve, be able to associate, be able to read, is perfect. Have those desires, because Krishna says that I will help you remember, I will help you remember, and I'll give you knowledge. He's making that promise in 15:15. So isn't it prudent that we take him up on the promise? Would he not help us? If you have this prayer in your mind every day, that in the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I want to have a stable situation in my life where I would be able to sit and be able to focus and put all my energy into seva, all my energy into chanting, all my energy into reading. That is that's a bona fide desire. If you have that desire, will he or will he not facilitate? He will facilitate, because that desire is going to be facilitated to the best of what is required for the person. He will facilitate. So we have to recognize where we are in devotional service. We have to recognize. We have to recognize that we don't have intensity. We have to recognize that Krishna is constantly being impinged inside our heart to grant us desires which are not qualified in many cases, but which we are seeing as required. We can't help it, because whoever is in being troubled is going to ask for help. So this particular platform of asking for things where to resolve issues is Karma Mishra Bhakti. This is Mishra Bhakti. This is a mixed platform. It is not pure devotional service. The platform of pure devotional service is defined by Srila Rupa Goswami, where he says, Anya Bilashita Shunyam. He says, Anya Bilashita Shunyam. I really don't care. I really don't care how I'm being maintained. I don't care how I'm being maintained. I don't care where I'm going to be maintained. I don't care in what way. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam. Neither do I want relief from my condition if I'm suffering. I'm not asking for relief. I'm not going to ask for relief. Anukulena Krishna Anushirinam Uttama Bhakti. Bhakti Uttama. This is the definition of Uttama Bhakti. So we have to go from the platform of Mishra to Shudra Bhakti. And before we do that, we have to steady ourselves so that we have a lot of impetus for us to be able to move forward. For that to happen, there has to be a core set of desires that we have to actively ask for on a daily basis so that we are able to keep ourselves steady. If those core set of desires of wanting to be able to chant with deep absorption, wanting to be able to read with absorption, being able to associate, being able to serve, if those core desires are replaced with other desires based on other identities that we have established in the world, then we are constantly going to be in a platform of forgetting Krishna and with him facilitating us. Does it make sense? If he is responding to what is in the heart, shouldn't we have core set of desires? Shouldn't we identify what is required for those core set of desires to flourish? And this is acknowledging that there are challenges. This is not without acknowledgement. The issue is of faith. The issue is of faith in the holy names. The issue is of faith in Krishna. It is a fact that he is there. It is a fact. He is there. Srimati Radharani is there. The gopis are there. It's a fact. They're serving him. The eternal seva is going on. It's a fact. It's a fact. So we accept that fact into our heart. And we ask for core services to be established in such a way. The core practice has to always be there. Please remember this. The core practice has to be there. You know, you're training to be a physician here in the States, right? One of the things which they do, which is to be learned from, is the fact that they keep resident doctors who are in training awake for 24 hours. Is it 24 or more than that? More than that. They keep them awake. What is the purpose of keeping them awake? The purpose of keeping them awake for such a long time is to make them lose dependence on their own faculties, but to depend completely, even in such a compromised situation, to be able to recognize what to do. Do you understand? Because the body fails and yet they're expected to act. It is almost as if you're being kept awake for 24 hours plus, and yet you still have to take the right action in being able to treat the patient, where your faculties and your intelligence and your mind is not going to be able to tell you. Why is it constantly being drilled down? Because it really doesn't make sense, if you look at it, to keep someone who is supposed to offer critical care awake for 24 hours plus and 36 hours. Really, does it make sense? It doesn't. But what are they trying to do? They're practically trying to push you to the limits where you function on autopilot, where the thinking process and your work and everything has become so absorbed that you don't really have to think. You will act without much thought process. You know, one of my friends, ages back, he was taking the FRCS in London. You know, the FRCS? The College of Surgeons and Collagen. And the way they used to do it for them to give a qualification was they practically had to identify a very small body part, you know, by viewing, just like that, you know, from a cadaver. They will have to identify. It could be some kind of a sinew, it could be something which can't really be discerned at first glance, but they have to identify like that. How will that happen? You know, where you're able to identify something which is not very readily apparent just by viewing it immediately, unless you've had hours and hours and hours and hours of practice in being able to understand, you know, what they are. You see, the point which I'm trying to make here is that we should train ourselves to have a core practice of being able to function in Krishna consciousness, even in adverse conditions. Please understand it. Because 99% of devotion service, devotees, they are unable to function as devotees when there is a challenge. When there's a challenge with the body, when there's a challenge with the economy, when there's a challenge with the relationships, everything stops, including Krishna consciousness. It becomes overwhelming. But if it becomes overwhelming and we stop our core practice, it becomes very difficult for us to catch up. And then there is this whole concept where some devotees believe in saying that I missed 4 rounds yesterday, I'll put it in a notebook. I missed 8 rounds today, I'll put it in a notebook. I'll miss 8 rounds, 16 rounds, I'll put it in a notebook. 16 rounds, 32 rounds, and then I'll catch up when the weekend comes or when I have some time. It's not going to happen. What is it which made us miss in the first place? What made us miss was our lack of recognition that this is core practice. There's a lack of intensity. There's a lack of intensity. This is core practice. You don't miss it no matter what. This is what is going to bring you out. This is what is going to solve problems. You cannot solve problems outside of Krishna consciousness. You can't. Every solution lies in adhering to Krishna consciousness. Following the morning program, which Srila Prabhupada gave us, to the best of our ability depending on constraints that we have, being able to chant, being able to associate, this is going to solve problems. Trust me. It's not the other way around. You cannot really come back to Krishna consciousness after solving problems outside of Krishna consciousness. There is no solution outside of Krishna consciousness. There isn't. There isn't. If there is, then please do tell me what it is. I'm eager to look into it. There isn't. Do not try solve life's problems outside of Krishna consciousness. You solve your Krishna consciousness and your problems are going to be solved. It's the other way around. Everything is available. It's the other way around. Okay? I'm not giving you a pep talk. Okay? I have been beaten around for 30 years. Okay? I've probably dropped the ball a few times and I've picked it up. And I'm talking out of experience. Okay? So I'm not giving you a pep talk. Neither am I saying things to please you. I don't care, honestly. So does it make sense as to what is the framework that you have to establish? Your framework has to be that your core practices have to be preserved, have to be conserved under all circumstances. Everything else will fall in place if the core practice is followed and is adhered to. Problems break and come and go. Problems come and go. The Srimad Bhagavatam is full of narrations of problems that were faced by devotees. Problems will come and they will go. What did people do when they faced problems? That is scripture. It is preparing us for experiences. Scripture is not story. It's preparing us for experiences because we can fall into the same category just like that. Problems will come and they will go. Have you not seen it? Civilizations come up and they decline. Great civilizations existed and people thought that they were current and they declined. Other civilizations came up. Great civilizations existed. They declined. So problems come, they go. Problems come and they go. It's a matter of time. If you shift the core practice of Krishna consciousness based on the problem that you're facing today, that is the gravest mistake you will ever do. So if there is any unfavorable practice, it is the practice of being able to practically send a signal to Krishna that I want to forget you. Don't do that. He will make you forget him. He will. He's saying it in Bhagavad Gita. Okay? He's saying that I'm going to help you forget me. So don't do that. Keep your core practices intact all times and constantly desire and request that the core practices should never ever be interrupted and that conditions should become stable so that you're able to chant properly, you're able to associate and being able to read and so on. Have that prayer in your lips at all times to Krishna. Because if that particular factor of your life is fixed and it is made certain and it is stabilized and it is not going to change, you will not have problems in anything. You will not have problems. Don't underestimate what Krishna can do and cannot do. He's saying that. He's saying, I'm going to help you. Why would he make that statement? And that is the Paribhasha Sutra of the Bhagavad Gita, the most critical, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, where he's making the promise. I will help you remember me. I will help you forget me. This is frightening when Krishna is making that statement. So what is it that we ought to do? We never ever want to give him a chance to help us forget him. Never do that. Never. So what do? We constantly ask for ways to maintain our core practice. How you're going to maintain your core practice is up to Krishna. That's a caveat which I want to bring up. Please remember this. You might have set a standard of how you want to live, but how he wants to maintain you could be very different. Very different. How he wants to do things for you could be very different. He has his plans. You have your plans. He has his plans. We have our plans and he has his. So we don't want to again go and make plans for him saying, I want this and I want that. We want to ask for our core practices to be intact. How he wants us to remember and how he wants us to move forward is entirely up to him. Does that make sense? Do we really know what is best for us? We don't. Don't kid ourselves. We don't. 99% of our thoughts, 80% I would say for most part, are negative. Most people are like that. Most people have negative thoughts. Most people constantly are thinking about things that will go wrong in their lives. It's 80%. So our thoughts are not very favorable for us. We have a very dismal view of the future. We're not optimistic. So let's not really think that he has to grant our desires. We'll be in big trouble. The world will be in trouble if he has to grant our desires. No. Let him do what is best for us, and we ask to be maintained the way he wants us to be maintained. Okay? So I'm going to stop here. So I'll see if we can take some questions. So I just want to quickly summarize, and some of you already had questions, we'll get to it. I want to quickly summarize. The idea is to develop favorable practices and to give up unfavorable practices. Favorable and unfavorable practices are all based on how we execute the foundation of Dharma. The foundation of Dharma is austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So we want to have austerity, which essentially means that for us to achieve whatever we want to achieve, there is a need for austerity. That's a foundation. Nothing is accomplished without austerity. Nothing, right? Many of you know that if you achieve things. There's nothing accomplished without austerity. Nothing is accomplished without a cleanliness in the heart. Nothing. Nothing is accomplished without developing compassion, because that's what requires empowerment. Nothing is accomplished without aligning ourselves with truth. So we then spoke of the fact that Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. He says, remember me at all times, offer homage unto me. Then we also touched upon the fact that remembering him at all times is not even a pleasurable concept in the minds of serious practitioners. I would say practitioners, not serious practitioners. It is not. It's conceptual. It is there as a part of the Bhagavad Gita. It takes many, many years to come to terms with it, the way it should be. It is there. So that leads us to conclude that many of us, or practically most of the practitioners, do not desire pure devotional service. It is not there as an active desire. We practice, but we don't desire. We practice. We practice and we do things for many reasons, without knowing them in some cases, because it's good. Sometimes it is just that we find it good, we do it. But in reality, many of us don't really have that written down, that I want to desire pure devotional service. We don't. We don't. We have to be very honest when you're dealing with Krishna consciousness, because that's what's going to help us come to conclusions. Then we look at what is going to help us. 15:15, Krishna is saying, I'm going to help you remember. I'm going to give you knowledge. I'm also going to help you forget. And then that's where we have to create a framework for existence. Every one of us is going to have problems of different kinds, because that's the nature of life on the planet. So we constantly have to maintain a core practice. Desiring a core practice and fighting to maintain it at all times, and requesting Krishna to assist us so that we can maintain a core practice, should be a daily prayer to him. By doing so, we would see that everything else which we think is a problem would go away. It would go away in the manner in which Krishna wants it to go away, not on our terms. Remember that. Krishna resolves and makes things happen based on his will, not our will. He knows what is best for us. So we stop here and we want to see if there are any questions. Someone asked, Arnab, I'm coming to yours, unless I have not I've answered it already in some form.
Yes, indeed. Partly it's answered.
Partly. Tell me the part which is not answered.
So, probably what I'm still not convinced, I want to understand is that, let's say somebody wakes up in the morning to do
Right.
the chanting.
Right.
So there's definitely a desire to do
Right.
the chanting.
Right.
And when that desire is there, um, then why it is not being fulfilled? Why mind deviates? Why we say that it's not a pure desire?
Well, it is, see, the desire, the purity of a desire is where we talk about. What is a pure desire? Purity is defined by Shastra. We do not want to concoct meanings of purity based on what we think it is. Purity is defined by Shastra, defined by Srila Rupa Goswami, where he says, Anya Bilashita Shunyam. Bilashita is you can have desires for survival. For instance, while you walk out and then you are crossing, for example, a circumstance which is life-threatening, at that point, requesting Krishna to save us does not hamper pure devotional service, as defined by our acharyas. So that's why we add Anya Bila Shita. We don't really say Anya Bila Sha. We're adding a Shita. along with it. Ta. Then he is saying Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam. There can be absolutely no question of the presence of karma Mishra Bhakti. Karma Mishra Bhakti is defined by Krishna, where he says there are desirers of wealth, desires who are in distress, people who are in distress, people who are desirous of wealth, people who are inquisitive, people who are in the pursuit of knowledge. All of these people approach me. This is Karma Mishra, Mishra Bhakti. That is taken out completely. If that exists at some part where we have manifestations of any one of these aspects of wanting to accumulate certain things, we can attribute many labels to it, saying I'm doing it for Krishna, but yet it exists. Then that is not pure devotional service. It becomes thwarted. If we are in distress, some kind of deep distress, and then we want relief from such distress, it again interferes with the prospect of desiring only pure devotional service. So that's where I was talking about desiring only pure devotional service is quite rare. And it is rare because the goal itself is not fully understood. It's conceptually difficult for people to constantly think that I want to constantly remember Krishna. It is a religious effect, not one which is born out of natural, spontaneous love. It's good to think of Krishna as what we normally think of from a religious, from a, from a, what do you call it, how we were cultured when we were raised. But not out of love, where there's spontaneity. I want to constantly think of him. Because I'm in love with him, I'm constantly thinking of him. That particular aspect is not understood. It's not clear. And it won't be. It won't be. It won't be unless the Karma Mishra Bhakti goes away. He is not going to come as a personal associate. He is going to be a granter of desires of, okay, you're wanting wealth, you're wanting position, you're wanting this, you're wanting that. I'll give you that. You're not going to get me. You're not going to get me. You want to solve problems? I'll give you that. You want to leave the material world? I will give you that. But you're not going to come to me. You're not going to get me. Right?
So Prabhuji, I can.
Sure.
So Prabhuji, on one side we tell that Krishna gave this knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, to Arjuna, who is a Grihastha, and you also from the ruling sect. Uh, and on the other side, we are saying, and they actually all the Pandavas throughout their life they fought for, and then they prepared the childhood, and then they fought for the kingdom. So there was definitely that desire.
It was not.
No.
No. No. They were ready to accept 5 villages. Krishna, this is what I meant by saying you're ready to accept how he is going to maintain you. Krishna did not consult with the Pandavas. When he went and approached Dhritarashtra, he said, give me 5 villages so that I can give it to my devotees. They will accept it. They would have readily accepted whatever Krishna gave. The circumstances which were brought upon them were such that they became slaves in a kingdom from kings. They lost their kingdom. The wife was humiliated in so many different ways. I mean, unimaginable calamities came upon them. In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they had different motivations. Those motivations were anger because of the fact of how they were treated and so on and so forth. But if Krishna had come back from Hastinapur and had told them, I asked for 5 villages, they've given me 5 villages. You forget about whatever you're thinking about, they would have accepted it. That would have been the glory of the Pandavas. They would have accepted it. They go through Kurukshetra and they go through this extraordinary function of losing their children, losing everything. What kind of aspiration would anybody have in terms of wanting to rule over earth when such heavy losses have been incurred in their lives? So the point which I'm trying to make here is one cannot be in association with Krishna, personal association, and have any other aspiration. It may appear to be so for our eyes. It's impossible. It's impossible. At the highest level of love, for Krishna, Bhava Bhakti. In sadhana bhakti, the highest level is Bhava Bhakti. The perception of stimulation of the senses in this universe will cease to exist. Even the perception will not be there that there is some stimulus in being here on the planet to become happy about something here. Do you understand? Things which normally make a person happy because they are in a body, it will not exist. They will have absolutely, it will become imperceptible because their experience of spirituality and their experience of what they have to experience in the spiritual sky would be so profound that they would say liberation is tucha. We can throw it away. What to say of pleasures of this world? So there can be no desires. That's a definition which we have to adopt. So we have to have a benchmark to understand who we are. And what is the best benchmark? Go through Shastra. We should never analyze external. We should always analyze within what Shastra has given us. Does it make sense? No, no problem. Yes, Arnab, you had a question? I'll come to you.
Tolji, I think you answered my question also in most parts, but I was just thinking that all you're very right in that like all my desires are not spontaneous love for Krishna. Like when I chant, my desires are contaminated by material aspirations. But then how do I break out of that cycle without Krishna's grace?
Right. So the question is that in the beginning stages of devotional service, in the stages of devotional service in terms of sadhana, which everybody is in, our aspiration has to be that there are milestones of bhakti. But before we attain those milestones, we have to have core practices that are very steady and which are involved. So we desire core practices. So that's what we ought to do. When you start out as, let us say, a certain level in the office, and you want to go 3 steps above, what is the aspiration to go 3 steps above? You don't really go 3 steps above like that. The aspiration is to go to the next level. How do you attain the next level? You figure out what is to be done to attain the next level, and you keep desiring to be able to put in the maximum which you can to go to the next level. So what is the next level for us? The next level for us is to ensure that we have a core practice of Krishna consciousness, core practice of sadhana, which is steady and which is unshaken and is very, very pakka over a long period of time. That is our aspiration. So we ought to aspire for that. So once we aspire for that, we can go higher. So an athlete who is competing and wants to enter the Olympics, he first would like to participate in the town athletic meet. He would succeed there. After succeeding in the town, he will go to the city, then the state, and then he would go on further to the country, and then he would go on to the international stage. So there are going to be gradations of effort, gradations of expertise which have to be built upon, and it takes time. But each and every time you set a goal, you're going to keep the big picture in mind whilst you develop aspirations for the smaller picture. Does it make sense? What's your question?
Desire. How do we get that for it? How that is something so that we can
Well, the idea is, in most cases, when we come into Krishna consciousness is also very milestone driven in certain ways. Just as I spoke, in the corporate environment, if you want to get promoted, you have milestones, you have levels. You go from, one level of seniority to the other. So similarly, Krishna consciousness has its milestones. These milestones are defined in scriptures such as Madhurya Kadambini. I have spoken about it quite extensively. The lectures are available on my website. Okay, you can go there and you can listen to it about these milestones. These milestones are our aspirations. We go from one milestone to the other. To go and attain that milestone, there has to be practice. If you are practicing for the 100-meter dash in the Olympics, then you have to perfect the 100-meter dash at the town level, village level, and all the way up to the Olympics. So what is the 100-meter dash? It requires a certain level of practice, certain understanding, how to do so, how much practice we need. So for us, it is chanting. That is the core practice. For us, it is chanting. To facilitate chanting, we have scriptures. To facilitate scriptures and chanting, we have devotee association. We have so many other things that are a part of all of this. Does it make sense? So you go from one level to the other by increasing the intensity of your practice. So that's why I said, if you want to resolve issues that are related to Krishna consciousness first. You would automatically find the other issues falling in place because the other issues are dependent. This is Shastric. This is the Shastric revelation. It is being given continuously. When someone is aspiring for something, insurmountable difficulties are being taken care of by Krishna. Insurmountable. Krishna is saying he is ready to change the government for his devotees. He came and killed Hiranyakashipu. He is saying, I'm ready to do anything for you so that you can move forward. And we are saying we should recognize that help is available. Develop a set of desires that are aligned with the core practice and keep asking for those. How he is going to facilitate that is up to him. We will never ever be able to judge what is good for us. No, don't make that mistake. Doing our best is one thing, but accepting the results as given by him is another. Does it make sense? Yes.
Thank you very much. I was trying to relate from your last class. I did not attend, but I heard the recording. Talking about consciousness,
Right.
desires, words, actions. Starting of the class, I could not relate, but by the end of the class, I was able to. But my question was, Prabhuji, the consciousness that we are talking, which is the reason for the desires, how much is it karmic dependent? First question. And then, if it is so, we say in our mission that sadhya and goal and both are same. So we are doing a practice, and we have started class with that we have serious intentions. That's the reason we are sitting here and listening to the class. And Prabhuji also said that
Right.
our desires are. So how much it will be helpful? Though I have all the facilities, though I have everything given, better facilities given, if still I am not able to say Krishna, do everything what I would like to do, how is this particular stage of sadhana going to be helpful? There are set of core practices, of course. We have decided that this we want to do. This is there. Maybe not in the minds, but on the table at least that we have to do. And we are trying to do it.
Right, right.
So this one, how it's going to helpful, and how does this karma affect in this process of interpreting?
Okay, karma, there are two aspects to our existence. There is karma and there's desire. What is happening to us has two components. What is happening to us is because of karma. It is also because of desires. Whatever one has inherited is karmic reactions. But if one desires to wanting to change what has been inherited, they have the ability to do so. If that ability is not there to be able to change our karmic reactions, it is fruitless to even have a discussion on sadhana. It is meaningless. If you cannot change what you have brought into this world from your past, then let's not talk about anything. When we come and we give classes, the idea is to be able to modify the second component, desires. I am here to modify desires. Karma is there, and then I'm here to modify desires. When these two combine, then there's a future. You understand? What did I do? All I sat down and said was, you desire core practices. Don't desire trying to solve problems in isolation, because they will not get solved the way you ought to solve them. It will not. It will always be an arrangement which is probably not going to fit in. It may fit in today, it may not fit in 5 years from now. You'll have problems. So there is karma and there is desire. Karma can be changed. Karma is what has brought us together. It has brought us. There are so many people who are white, who are black, who are born in, for example, Muslim families could be. What is it which gave them impetus to come and join Krishna consciousness? It was desire. Their desire to know God was quite intense. So even though karmically they were in a circumstance which was not a part of the Vedic paradigm, they were able to come and take it up and take it up so seriously and come forward. So their desires were what propelled them. They went above their karma. Karma is the family they're born in, the body they were born in, so many different things. So karma can be changed if we desire to change. Along with desires which are healthy, you have to have healthy practice. I was just talking to someone. The asuras, as described in scripture, every asura understood this little fact. No, they understood the fact that you can chant mantras and you can obtain things. Did you not notice his asuras? Every asura has done that practically. Ravana, Kumbhakarna, everyone who are all these big timers, every asura sat down and they understood that if I put in tapasya and I chant my mantras, I will attain something. And my lamentation was, why can't devotees understand that? Why is it that we are devotees, for crying out aloud? If the demons could figure this out and they could go and they could wear a dhoti and they could go and sit in austerity and they knew whom to call, which mantra to call, and they knew that if I do that, I'll get that, and they put their efforts and they got what they wanted. It's full of scriptures. It's full. Scriptures have everything in scriptures. It's been talking about it. So why do we as devotees have such doubts in sadhana? And the ability of sadhana, ability of the Mahamantra. The Mahamantra chanted defectively grants material desires. The Mahamantra chanted purely without offenses grants liberation. Why do we have such doubts? The Asuras don't have doubts. They figured it out, didn't they? They had wrong desires, yes, they had wrong goals, but the process was pakka. Asuras have great capacity for austerity. That's why austerity is not counted to be a wonderful thing. They can do tapasya. Oh, tremendous amount of tapasya. Great. Enormous amount of tapasya. Do you know the number of lives which are lost in building the George Washington Bridge? And the what do you call it? What's the big one? Huh? No. In New York City, I forget. No, the big building. I forget the Empire State Building. The Empire State Building. Do you know the number of lives that were lost? Go read. Go read in the Wikipedia. You'll know enormous amount of lives were lost in just trying to build something. The effort which was put in building a monument here, enormous. Those days they did not have the safety procedures that they have today in terms of construction. They didn't. Don't underestimate what goes on in the world. They have greater capacity. The demons have greater capacity. They have greater capacity for understanding how to bring alliances. They have amazing capacity to build partnerships, to build resources. They have good understanding of what is required. Devotees are sloppy. Huh? Well, I don't know about the middle part, but we are sloppy for sure. There's no doubt. We are very sloppy in understanding what is required. So, I answered your questions both ways. The subsequent part.
Just clarification on the second part, Prabhuji. Krishna gives us the knowledge, Krishna gives us the intelligence, and Krishna knows maybe it's not a pure, complete desire to continuously get engaged or remember Him, but we are in the path, we are in the track, we are in the right process.
Right.
Serious intentions.
Right. So, what we need to do is to have targets. Think more about what will fit in terms of the town level athletic meet. What is a city level athletic meet as far as you're concerned in terms of engaging yourself in sadhana bhakti? What is your short term goal for the next year? What is your medium term goal for the next 5 years? Okay. Account for the fact that this includes comfortable chanting of the holy names, facilitation, so many other things. These are all a part of how you have to plan. If you're serious and understanding there's a lifetime process, you have to plan for it. You can't work otherwise. It's not going to work otherwise. It's not. You'll face difficulties. Yes.
So probably this whole discussion is under the banner of Saranagati,
Right.
Surrender, right? So definition of surrender, if you see literally, it's like inability to do something is called surrender, right? But I see all the lectures, like it It's about like how we are going to do it, like how we are going to establish our core principles, right?
Right. So where is the
Isn't it
contradiction?
like kind of contradictory like that? Surrender means like I say, okay, I give up.
Surrender doesn't mean inaction. Who said it means inaction? Surrender is founded on dharma. Dharma requires austerity. Dharma requires purity. Dharma requires, mercy. Requires truthfulness. So our part is this. Our part is this. Okay. What is it which is going to make someone act? Desires. So we are trying to modify and do our part.
So this is all under surrender.
Yeah. Even if we do all of this, this in no way or means can ever qualify towards contributing for the goal. So our contribution is probably 1%, even if you do it nicely. So we are at least trying to do the 1% properly for what is to be given to us. Yeah.
So we are just readying ourselves for surrender.
We are doing what is required and then positioning ourselves as a qualified candidate. I'll give you an example. Do you consider that a teacher is a fair teacher if she gives equal grades and treats everybody in the classroom properly? Will she be considered fair?
No.
Yeah, there can be bad students, there can be students who are medium grade, and there can be very good students. Would you consider a teacher to be a fair teacher, a neutral teacher? If they give equal grade, treat everybody same? Yeah. So we are trying to be good students so that we qualify ourselves and we ready ourselves, we position ourselves to be picked up. Right? If someone has to pick us up from a sinking ocean, at least we should know how to stay afloat for a few minutes when they throw the rope, right? At least for a few minutes. Or at least we should know how to grab the rope. And after grabbing, we should know how to hold on to it. What if we just struggle and let go of the rope, make the next fellow sink? Right? So that's what takes practice. Yeah, readiness is required. Yeah, Krishna consciousness and surrender is a tricky concept. You need to do everything as if it depends on you, but also having the understanding that it is Krishna who is going to ultimately help. And the results are going to be given by him. But everything has to be done as if it depends on you. Or it is dependent on me. I have to do it. Right? That's what this is. Okay, any one last question before we close for the day, for the evening? Okay, we'll end today's session. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.